Hi everyone, I'm Frankie de Meyer, author of DeepMeta software. In this short video, I'll present you the new features that have been recently added to DeepMeta, namely royalty statements, sales, and statistics. When you open up DeepMeta, you'll find that there are now 3 additional options named statements, sales, and statistics. To bring in information, to bring in your royalty statement information and sales statistics, you go to the upload section and press the Start Sync button. Synchronization is pulling in all information from the iStock servers into DeepMeta. You'll see here at the bottom in the history panel that some new batch information is being pulled in. But on top of that, we see that there's a new royalty statement available, namely the royalty statement for April, which covers the sales that have taken place in the month of March. If we now go to the statements section, we will see that there were already a number of statements available, but there's now the statement for April that's also available. There's some information being shown here, which is just a subset of everything that's available. If you right-click on one of the column headers and hover over the Insert Move columns, you will see all the possible columns that can be added. It's a huge amount of columns. It's a huge amount of detail that you can get. And all this information, each of those columns correspond to exactly one column in the original iStock statement data. So it's a convenient way to view your statements from DeepMeta. And you can insert, you can enable any column that you might want to be interested in. For the initial set, a number of most common columns have been selected. You can see the payment that you will get. You will see when the payment will happen, the number of items that are in the statement, etc. Now, of course, this is not exactly very informative, besides just getting an overview of how much you'll be getting paid for the past month. So a lot more detail can be obtained if we go to the sales section. What this section is showing is all the individual lines that are present in the royalty statement files downloaded from the iStock site. All these individual lines can be found here. Again, we can choose, we can pick which columns we want to show. A number of the most obvious ones have been shown. As usual in DeepMeta, you can sort by any column that you might want to be interested, in. You can use the search box to limit the number of items being shown. For instance, I can type 21704 to just see the information from the latest royalty statement, namely of April. I could also limit, for instance, to all the sales that have been made in France and have a look at that. I could limit the search to just show video files that have been sold. So there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of information that you could extract from this. If you care to spend the time to look at the raw information, so this is really the raw information, every single line that's present in the original downloaded statements can be found here. A small word on some of the information you might find here. For instance, you see that there's a royalty 0 being reported here, which might seem odd. It might make you think that you've been selling a file for $0. This one is the same. This is not always this is not necessarily the case, and you can get a better view if you sort by invoice, and then you will see that for files that are reporting $0 gross royalty, that in fact there is another line right beside it, because we've sorted by invoice number, with an identical invoice number, which is giving you an actual amount of royalty. This is usually due to corrections that Getty makes regarding the minimum payout and other contractual engagements. If you go to the DeepMeta website and you click on Getting Started, and then you click on the Statistics section. I'm just going to show you here, because a lot of people are not aware that there's a lot of information on the DeepMeta site. A lot of questions that I see coming have been answered in the Getting Started guide. So this is the section that we have on statistics and charts, and I have a number of useful links at the bottom. I'm gonna have a look. It's not here, it's on the other page. Let's see, for statements and sales. Okay, so there's 2 sections covering this. And at the bottom here, I have a number of useful links pointing to the official information from iStock. And this is the iStock rate card, for instance, that you might want to have a look at. If you don't understand some of the items that are present in the statement, a lot can be explained here. For instance, for photos, you will see that subscription licenses have a minimum price per file. And that's one of the reasons why we see certain corrections in the statements here, why we see more than one line for a particular sale. So not every line in the statement is a sale. Sometimes it's a correction to a previous line from another statement month. Now, you'll probably not be very interested in looking through this tabular form of data, because I can imagine if you have a lot of sales, which I wish very much that you do, at a certain point, of course, it's not going to be practical to be doing this. So that's why we have the statistics section in DeepMeta, which is set up to be a kind of set of widgets that you can enable that present a particular view of your data. Now, there's a lot of information on this page. We'll just go through it from the top to the bottom. At the top, you see a number of checkboxes, and those are enabling what widgets, what charts that you are seeing. So I can disable a number of them. And for instance, here we only see the pie charts. So that's one particular view. The pie charts, of course, that's the 3 charts at the right, and there's 2 bar charts alongside. You can disable that. Of course, at that point, there's not a lot of information present anymore. I can't imagine why you'd want to do that. There's a bar chart that you can see. We'll have a look at it a little later. There's an area chart. There's the map of the world or of the United States that you can have. And most interesting probably is you can see what files have been selling. So let's just have a look at the first few charts. This is the default view. And at the top, you see a bar that represents the entire period for which you have data downloaded in statements. You can see it covers November up to the end of April at the moment. You can tell the system to group by day, by week, by month. And there's not just the sales month, but there's also the statement month. The difference between the two is if you look at the statements or if you look at the sale, then you can see that this information here in the month column, that's the month of the statement. So the top one here is a sale covering a sale entry that was reported in January, and it took place in January in this case. But for instance, the second one was reported in the statement of February, but it actually took place, the sale, date itself was in January. So that's why we have in statistics, that's why we have a selection where you can say, okay, I want to view the months in which the sale took place or the months where the sale was reported. When you hover over one of the bars or one of the pie segments, you can see some details about this particular segment, the gross royalty, the number of downloads, and then the royalty that you got per download. Now, the charts are interactive, which means that you can't just look at them and hover over them, but you can actually select a particular chart. So for instance, if I want to select all the sales that were reported in the latest statement in April, then I can do this way. I can group by week, for instance. So what happens is that all the other charts on the page will adjust. They will only show the subset of the data, namely all the sales that were reported in April. I can clear this selection by clicking the reset link here. That's one thing to be aware of. A second thing is that you can select what information is being shown in each of the charts. For instance, here we have the dollars, the royalty per statement date, but we can also select, for instance, the country or state where the sale took place. And then we can see, for instance, that United States is the top selling country for this portfolio. Here again, we can, for instance, click on France as a country, and then we see all the sales that took place in France. We can see the distribution, what collections have been sold in France, the royalty rates that took place, and at the bottom we can see what files have been selling in France. We can reset and select Germany, for instance, and we can see what files have been selling in Germany. We can restrict to a particular point in time. For instance, I could now select this chart to show the statement date and then say, okay, I just want to see the sales that took place in Germany that were reported in March, for instance, if you'd care to do that. So you can combine a number of different criteria and drill into filtering your data according to a particular criteria. At the top of the page, there's a global reset link. So if at a certain point you don't really know what you've been doing anymore, or you can't make sense of the data, just click the reset link at the top left, and you will see the entire data set, the entire information that's been downloaded in the statements, in the royalty statements. Another way to select particular information is to use the top timeline. For instance, if I'm interested to see what has been selling the last week of April, then I can just select this one and I get the information. And then I can just move the cursor all the way to the left and then see the different sales that took place, the countries where the information was, where the files have been downloaded, etc. I can expand the area to cover, for instance, a full month in this case. So that's another way that you can filter the data. If you're tired of using this particular set of filtering, you just click the reset link at the top. Let's hide the bar chart and show the area chart. The area chart gives you another view of your sales, and what it presents is, in this case, the number of downloads, but you can also select the royalties that you got for a particular collection in this case. Or you could, for instance, say, I want to see the division US downloads, for instance, non-US downloads over time. Again, you can combine you can combine particular search criteria. For instance, you could say, okay, I'm just interested in the downloads for, let's say, particular statement month, or I can combine a number of months, or I can reset this particular criteria to see all the information for the entire data set. Let's hide the array chart. The world map is yet another view if you want to get some overview of who's actually buying your files and how local your portfolio is. Then that's definitely a way to look at it. In this case, we see that most of the buyers are relatively local here in Western Europe and also in the United States. The different charts are linked. I'll just show it. If I just click Germany, for instance, and you forgot where Germany was. Okay, so that's where it was. I can add France, I can add United Kingdom, etc. Or I can just reset this particular criterion and view everything. Or I can say, okay, I want to see, for instance, if I choose the transaction type here, then I can see whether it was a subscription sale or a credit pack or something else. So if I just want to get an overview of where my files are being bought with subscriptions, then I can just select this criterion, or I can reset. If you're more interested to get the details specifically for United States, then you can do this as well in dollars or in downloads. And then you can see, for instance, here it's mostly California and New York that have been buying files, along with Washington. Most interesting is your files, and the sorting of the thumbnails here is done, in this case, by dollars, by royalties, or you can sort by number of downloads that you got. You can expand to see more thumbnails. And if you want to see even more details, it's best to select the file list display, which will show you the top sellers, along with some additional information. For instance, what particular collection they were sold on, whether you were exclusive at that particular time when the sale took place, the number of downloads, and the royalty that you got. In this case, we've sorted by downloads, which means that it's the blue bars that will go from largest to smallest. If we sort by dollars, by royalty, then we see it's the green bars that will be sorted from largest to smallest. We can click on a particular file to get to open, sorry, not the thumbnail, but the number, to open the page, the iStock or Getty page for that particular file, if you don't remember what it was or whatever. What else can you do? You can go up to 250 files here if you really want to see the long tail of your sales. And of course, here again, you can select, you can say, okay, I just want to see the files that sold in Germany. What are the Germans or French people buying from me? Perhaps you have very specific local content that might help you in determining what your next shoots might be, or what might be interesting to invest in. I think that's pretty much it. I suggest you have a look at the information at the Getting Started pages of the website. There's some more information there, some more details on all the particular different charts that you have. If you have additional questions, of course, as usual, just go ahead and ask. And if you have particular requests, because this is just what you might call a version 1.0 of statistics in DeepMeta 3, there's a lot of plans for additional features. One thing that might still be interesting to explain is that if you look at the top set of features of DeepMeta, for instance, the files and batches and releases, and then the separate section below with statements, sales, and statistics, they're not really linked together, which means that, for instance, here in the statistics, you don't get access to information like when the file was uploaded, which is obviously something interesting, like you might want to see the files that you've uploaded for the last 3 months through the new ESP system. What is the income for those files? So that's something that's certainly going to be added. Another suggestion that's been coming up a number of times recently is to get access to boards, the light boxes, what used to be called Lightbox, which is called now a board on the iStock site, and to be able to see the performance of all the files in one particular board, which would allow you to create a number of boards for your particular shoots, and then you would be able to see, you might have made certain investments for a certain photo shoot, you might have hired some models and similar, maybe bought some props. So you've made certain costs and you might want to see, was it all worth it or not? So there's a lot of plans to make the statistics feature a lot more interesting than I think what it already is. But any further input is, of course, very welcome. Thank you.